All right, next I'd like to call Rose Marie Klein. Thank you. And after Mr. Bruce Dobson.
Rosemarie Kleinspan, born in Montour Falls, lived overlooking the lake most of my life, and I care a lot about the whole environment around here. I am bringing extraneously a letter from a former first grader who then grew up, went to college, and came to work for TEPCO. I would like to quote from a letter which he asked me to present to you. I was recently employed by TEPCO. Already there is an underground storage facility on the site with all of the potential dangers that a community would have to be aware of. Why would you compound it by asking another facility to expand to the same dangers? And I have to point out to you that when I was so happy that he was going to be somewhere around here, I could see my first grader, he told me, I don't think I'll be working here very long because it's relatively dangerous. And he wasn't. He stayed for a very short time. He says, too dangerous, I'm getting out of here. And for you who have relatives, that is compounded also for the new facility. Water is our most precious resource and should not be collateral damaged with this problem of propane, oil, and natural gas. TEPCO provides us all with the necessary service to the best of their abilities. My first statement is, I think it's, oh, by the way, I represent the greatest generation, okay? In my estimation, it's relatively stupid for a major business to provide itself with limited facilities. Who would ever put a big business like this, it's going to be the greatest on the East Coast, on a dead-end road? Maybe it doesn't to you, but I think that's relatively stupid. Okay, my statements. My statements are, this is the worst environmental threat to the waters and sound because the noise. I lived for 65 years on and off next to the Elks Club. And my mother, father, and I had to stop talking to each other anytime a truck went by. So I'm aware of all of that. This is the worst environmental threat to the waters, air, sound, aesthetic beauty, financial well-being, economic health of this fine community, and the proposed raping of this beautiful area. And my message to Inergy is we don't need you. There ought to be something else. The Finger Lakes has been voted the top wine country in the United States. Wonderful. That's where our economics and our future really lays, not with something that will pull that down. It has been deemed one of the top 10 tourism areas in the United States, and therefore vacations and people who are cherishing what we cherish, the beauty of the area, the untouchable, and the lady who sang the Indian song, I know that what it meant without her interpreting it. This is an area that was dear to the Indians, dear to all of our people who first settled here, and it should be dear to us. It doesn't belong to a big company. And for the people who said the politicians aren't here, I think you ought to get pen in hand and telephone in hand and call those politicians locally who haven't bothered to come and find out what the people in their community are thinking. My cottage it's called North Falls Road. That's Hector Falls. It's directly across the lake from the salt company. The coupling and the movement of trains at that salt company now interferes with my sleep, wakes me up some of the time. Sound intensifies when it travels across water. That means the full east side of the lake, as well as the west side of the lake, are going to be impacted by the noise that this has happened. They have said increase of track, increase of trains. It's not going to make any noise. How do you figure that's going to happen? More train tracks and truck traffic are horrible additions to night noise and noise all the time, daytime and what have you. You've been downtown, you've seen the traffic. This will be polluting with noise, interfering with traffic, flow for tourists, heighten the frustrations level of moving around the area with increased traffic flow. All you have to do is go downtown and sit and watch the traffic on Decatur Street, because Decatur Street has now become the old Main Street, because old Main Street is blocked, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way almost sometimes to Montour Falls. Property value. Nobody says anything about the little guy. I'm one of the little guys. What's going to happen to the property value of all of the area that's going to be impacted by the additional activities and train and whatever, pumping, whatever's happening? That's not going to be good for us. And that which we have, all we have is our property, and we hope it to be good. Okay, storage of pollution water in a 17, well, I was told 17, it's 14, isn't it? Acre holding pond with drainage downhill and drainage, you can't drain up. It's stupid to be in a place that's inaccessible, like it goes down, but it doesn't go up. Therefore, how are they going to move all this stuff? Oh, it sounds good. I watched and I reported this to the EPA meeting that was in Binghamton last September. I watched the water at the inlet, and in case you don't know it, the canal is one thing, the inlet is the other one, and that's east of that. And there was dumping, there was dirty water. You can't tell me that something big can't be around without polluting the water in some way. It just does. The salt industry didn't necessarily do it. Our salt was 99.7% pure. Okay, if we were going to have all this activity around, do you think that the salt is going to stay that pure? I don't. And then compounding it, if we do fracking and that runs downhill, that's going to compound the water even more. I got to tell you about a nightmare I had. Who cares about nightmares? This is one that's never left me. It's 20 to 30 years old. Water in a huge wave came crashing against my second-story cottage window. And all of my life, I have not forgotten it, because it took out the windows, it went right through the room. And all my life I thought, why did I dream something like that? I thought, how could water ever go up 100 feet? And that's how high I am off the water. And then I found out the possibility of a tsunami wave. They say nothing's going to happen. Oh, we presume it's not going to happen. But if there was ever an explosion, then a tsunami wave on Seneca Lake could occur. Take it away. I don't want that thought. It's the truth. Okay. Yes, I am. The United States that border the Great Lakes and the provinces of Canada that border the Great Lakes came to the agreement and signed a ban which would not let the waters of those Great Lakes be hurt. Nobody can take out things, nobody can dump things into the Great Lakes. They were protecting the water, and they were protecting the people that use that water. Why can't we have something like that? Why hasn't our legislation do something like that? And I have a thought. Maybe it's very, very far-fetched, but I was a conservationist with scholarships in conservation. I taught first grade. I had the best conservationists you ever knew. First graders, their lifetime learning is going to last their whole lifetime, okay? Corruption of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation has been complete. They fired 850 DEC employees, and now they've replaced them with people who I think are corruptible because they are going ahead without good thought, without the safety of proof that nothing is going to hurt us here from this. I don't believe in ignoring DEC, but the protectors who ignore DEC principles to sell out to the gas and oil industries, giving them invading, corrupt agencies and hurting our beautiful territory on a silver platter, they're giving it to them. And I am firmly against that. I may be an old timer, but I think sensibly. Take care, thanks.
Okay, just to give you a sense of where we are, we're about a little more than halfway through. We've gotten through 20 people. I have 60 more people who want to speak, okay? So that's just where we are. Mr. Dobson will be followed by Neil Johnston.
Hello, my name is Bruce Dobson. I've lived in this community my whole life. I was born in Monterey Falls Hospital back when it was down in Monterey Falls. I graduated from this high school in 1977. I've raised 5 children in this school district in this community. I'm concerned about this community just like everybody else. Inergy is not here to take our community. They're here to be part of our community. They're part of it already. They're an integral part. They've showed they've been responsible. As many people in this area know, LPG and natural gas storage has been around here for a long time. I guess I'm fortunate because I worked down at the salt plant and I knew of it. I've run around and spread literature around town, and it's amazing how many people didn't know about these facilities. They've been here for over 40 years, operating under safe, time-proven guidelines. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a professor. I'm just a hard-working, middle-class guy, girl, like most people in this community. I make, my decisions on what you see and what's happened. And when you sit back and for 40, 50 years, DEC has had their foot in, and it's been regulated and it's been operated. I did have a choice to go to Savona and look it over, and I encourage everybody to take the offer the young lady had to go up and visit a facility. I mean, a good fear is great. Everybody loves a good fear. And when I went door to door, you wouldn't believe some of the fears people were giving me that were spreading around. They were talking about brine ponds at Morton salt breaking and salt cavities under the lake, and it got way carried out. I mean, it's a proven fact. The best testimony about how safe, how out of sight, how don't bother anybody personality this business has is the number of people who didn't even know it existed. If they didn't even know it was there, then obviously there's no big fires, there's no gas clouds, there's no huge truck. I mean, it's been there. We've been doing it for years and years and years. So you would, if one was to review the facts and look at everything, there is no reason not to believe that this facility will be safe for the environment and the community. I urge DEC to approve this application. Thank you.
Okay, Neil Johnston, followed by Art Hunt.
My name's Neil Johnston. I live in Hector. And one thing that comes to mind, I just spent $813 this morning getting baseline testing for my household and hopefully a reference point for some of my community because I'm scared blankless about what's coming our way, and I'm doing anything I can to help. What we don't know can hurt us. It's foolish to pretend that that's not true. I first came here several years ago and I was awed by the sheer beauty of Watkins Glen, the Seneca Lake. I believe the Glen itself, as you take that hike, is an excellent example of what an administration should support in a recession. Create jobs, beautifying and leaving something for our children. This facility, I believe, is a polar opposite. Let's leave the gas in the ground where it can stay safely, not burn tons of fuel, inject millions of gallons of endocrine disruptors and carcinogens into our land and water just for a quick buck at the expense of our community, health, and future. Let's focus on renewable energies, not a depot to store our gas and ship it off. Seneca Lake's wineries and tourism are a growing renewable resource. Don't bury them in a salty grave. The gas industry has proven that it is too big to need to follow pesky regulations or heed safety concerns. This is about our land, our water, and our air. We don't want your facility or the industry and the bought-off politicians it rode in on.
Art Hunt will be followed by Emily, is it Rochette or Rochette? Rocket, sorry.
In the interest of time, Your Honor, I will yield my time to the next speaker.
It's up to you. It's up to you.
I'm Art Hunt. I have a winery in Branchport, Hunt Country Vineyards. I'm not directly affected by the gas drilling, by the gas storage facility here, but I do believe that it is connected and would be a very helpful asset to the hydrofracking industry that's on the edges of the state waiting to come in. I did not have a prepared statement. I don't want to exaggerate the dangers of this, but I do think that we all need to be cognizant that hydrofracking will destroy the tourism industry and the agriculture industry if it does come. So for those reasons, I'm here, concerned citizen. But I want to be brief, and I want to let other people who do live here speak. Thank you.
Emily Rocket will be followed by Becca Harbour.
Hello, my name is Emily Rocket, and I'm a law student working with Cornell's Water Law Clinic on behalf of Gas Free Seneca. I'd like to express a few concerns I developed upon reading Inergy's draft environmental impact statement. In general, the application's treatment of potential disasters is disturbingly vague and does not inspire me with confidence that Inergy has fully evaluated likely environmental consequences of their proposed project. Oh, I'm sorry. Gotcha. I propose that at the very least, an independent third party conduct a risk analysis at Inergy's expense so that the public can be assured that the likely catastrophic events that could happen with this facility are not being downplayed. On page 122 of the environmental impact statement, Inergy notes that the facility will require 30 trucks a day between 4 a.m. and 8 p.m. This sounds like quite a lot of noise at quite an odd hour. Furthermore, it's not clear if studies have been done to show how much this traffic affects a road like Route 14 and the effects of the exhaust on local agriculture or wildlife. Furthermore, in the UIC app, evaluation of well and cavern integrity is blacked out, as is the bit about mechanical integrity testing procedures. This is quite troubling. The permit process is designed to inform the public of potential risks inherent in a proposed project, and the public cannot adequately evaluate these risks if it is not given full information about the safety of the proposed storage areas. Inergy furthermore asserts that its project will not have significant visual impact. This seems dubious to me, given its permit app says 26 acres of meadow or brushland, 20 acres of forest, and 20 acres of agricultural land will be turned into 20 acres of water surface area, 11 acres of roads, buildings, or other paved surfaces, and 36 acres of mowed stormwater control. This seems like a significant visual impact to me, and I would be interested to hear how it does not qualify as such. This is particularly relevant given the importance of tourism to this area's economy. The leak holding system described on page 44 only holds 5,000 gallons of fluid. This is far less than the capacity of the brine tank, so what happens if there's a major leak? Particularly given the massive flooding that's happened in the region lately, this could be a serious problem. And Inergy's description of what happens in the event of a brine leak gives no indication of whether this backup brine storage can hold all the brine contained in the main brine pond, nor does it give a time frame for how long it would take to drain it and complete the necessary repairs. This is on page 58. Inergy's UIC application notes 2 tributaries into Seneca Lake on site, and it's not clear what happens with these tributaries in an overflow. The steps to be taken in case of spiller release are very broad, and the public deserves a more specific explanation of the magnitude of potential problems and the effectiveness of solutions. Because Inergy's application fails to share sufficient important information about the potential hazards posed, because these hazards would be catastrophic to the ecology and the economy of Watkins Glen, I propose that the DEC deny Inergy's permit, or at the very least, mandate a QRA be conducted by an independent third party so the public can be assured that proper analysis was undertaken with no motive to gloss over likely catastrophes. Thank you.
Sure. There's the cards, I guess, got reversed here. So it's Susie Kosek, and then followed by Becca Harbor.
I'm Susie Kosek. These are excerpts from the 1992 World Scientists' Warning to Humanity, signed by 1,700 of the world's leading scientists, including over half of Nobel laureates in science. And I quote, "Human beings and the natural world are in a collision course. If the human activities that inflict harsh and often irreversible damage aren't checked, many of these activities put at serious risk the future for human society and all forms of life, and so alter the living world that it will be unable to sustain life in the manner we know." I continue to quote, "The environment is suffering critical stress. Air pollution near ground level is already causing widespread injury to humans, forests, and crops. Heedless exploitation of depletable groundwater supplies endangers essential human systems. Pollution of rivers, lakes, and groundwater further limits the supply of fresh water. The earth is finite. Its ability to absorb wastes and destructive effluent is finite. Current economic practices which damage the environment in both developed and underdeveloped nations cannot be continued without the risk that vital global systems will be damaged beyond repair. No more than one or a few decades remain before the change to avert the threats we now confront will be lost and the prospects of humanity immeasurably diminished. We, the undersigned senior members of the world's scientific community, hereby warn all humanity of what lies ahead, a great change in our stewardship of the earth, and the life on it is required if vast human misery is to be avoided and our global home on this planet is not to be irretrievably mutilated. We must bring environmentally damaging activities under control to restore and protect the integrity of the Earth's systems we depend on. We must move away from fossil fuels to more benign, inexhaustible energy sources to cut greenhouse gas emissions and the pollution of our air and water. We need to recognize the Earth's limited capacity to provide for us. We must recognize the fragility. We must recognize its fragility. We must no longer allow it to be ravaged This ethic needs to motivate a great movement, convincing reluctant leaders and reluctant governments and reluctant peoples themselves to effect the needed changes.
Okay. Okay, after Becca Harbor will be Joanne
Sapola
Dennis.
I'm going on the tails of what Susie just read, but this is related to the proposed LPG storage and transportation hub. Based on all the comments of people questioning or just totally opposing this plan, I too believe that this will cause, whether soon or in the long, long term, great, great damage and harm to the health, safety, and well-being of the people, the creatures, the farms, the forest, and the waters of this region, the local economy, our beautiful rural landscape, and what peace and beauty we have. Now, Inergy wants this LPG to be one of the largest in the country, and you know, when people talk about, oh, they want to contribute to our communities, what the gas industry is about at basic, like almost any corporation, it's for making a huge amount of money for a very small number of people. I appreciate, and anyway, so in the long term, from the facilities and the pipelines that will fragment our landscape and have all kinds of effects from fragmentation, the reality, based on what has happened on other pipelines, I saw some videos of fires in very small LPG storage, filling station, and tanks that were pretty scary. So the reality is that there are going to be accidents. A lot of the ones that happen are covered up, so we don't, you know, they're not all recorded anyway. Mistakes, long-term pollution and noise, the degradation of at least the 620 acres to begin with, the harm and killing through the toxic spills. This is all based on what's happened before in various places. So it's only a matter of time before these things happen. Gas is going to leak out. Brine is going to eventually overflow the pit. When you think about the kind of climate changes we have, you know, how high did those rivers and streams get? I mean, I saw where the road was taken out on Banks Road outside of Ithaca today. Okay, trucks are going to have accidents with toxic spills. It happens everywhere that the gas industry is doing this hydrofracking and everywhere where they take gas, sooner or later. People are going to die. And the toxic VOCs, the ozone, and the other pollution that's going to come out of the flare stack, come out of the diesel engines, the trucks, and all that stuff, it's all going to harm the crops, the woodlands, and make a lot of people chronically sick, even if it takes decades, whether they get cancer or paralysis. And if you want to see what's been going on in Colorado and Wyoming, New Mexico, all those people that had to move because they're paralyzed, they can't breathe, they're in pain, okay? And that's all connected to the hydrofracking too. It's all connected, okay? Local roads are going to, you know, have extra trucks. People are going to be stressed out. Local people are going to be stressed out. There'll be more dangers. As people said, there's going to be the noise issue, and there is the real danger of possibly catastrophic or just terrible fires and explosions. I too believe the quality risk assessment by a neutral party it needs to happen, and it hasn't. I want to speak to a couple things people brought up about how, you know, the gas storage is way below the groundwater. Well, how are you going to get that gas out? There are going to be pipes connecting the ground, above the ground, to that gas, and it's going to go through the groundwater. That seems kind of pretty obvious. Also, people are saying that all this LPG storage that's happened, it's all been great. We're talking about a way bigger operation. It's not the same thing, okay? The new jobs are not necessarily going to replace all the ones lost to the local businesses that are impacted sooner or later. So anyway, I want to say all of this is completely unacceptable to me and all the local people that I know. And it is totally in opposition to what Susie read, the warning to humanity. So we need to stop this. And Energy, you can go somewhere else. And actually, I don't want you to go anywhere else.
Okay, Joanne Cipolla Dennis, followed by Karen Edelstein.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to thank the DEC for holding this hearing and for every single one of you who came out tonight, no matter what side you're on. It's important to speak your mind in public. I'm a resident of Dryden, and I came here tonight because it's crystal clear that the people are not being listened to. Perhaps it's because the town board members haven't had citizens' privilege on a regular basis. I think that a direct conflict with what the board members are elected to do, and that is to listen to the people who live here in order to do the town's business. In Dryden, we have publicly clarified our land use, reiterating that high-impact, heavy industrialization required to extract a finite fossil fuel, methane, destructive to people, air, water, and economies is not compatible with the town's plan. We won't risk bucolic scenery, our rich farmlands that grow organic foods upstate is known for and many are dependent on. 16 other small towns across the Empire State have joined that mission to bring about clarity despite the propaganda by the industry fat cats in expensive TV ads. There are too many people who now understand the magnitude of this project, the risk and consequences that inherently accompany this industry. Fracking shale to get methane gas via slickwater, high-volume horizontal drilling is killing America across this nation. Private corporations sought leases from unsuspecting farmers that, when activated, give those foreign companies the right to take every surrounding neighbor's gas against their will, without consent, then leave toxic brews of known carcinogens in the ground as a future source of water contamination. Constitutional rights for those leasing their land and their neighbors are swept away with a signature, and it's wrong. Corporations, if allowed to drill, will ruin neighborhoods, farmlands, and relationships, run over small towns, leaving them broke with devastating infrastructure repairs, contaminated air that they cannot escape, causing asthma and cancer. Governor Cuomo continues to side with the corporations and not ban this method throughout New York. We know he isn't going to protect us, as he promised. When in Ithaca last summer, he said, if it's not safe, well, we just won't do it. If it risks our water, well, we just won't do it. It won't be business as usual if I'm elected, and I will listen to the voice of the people. He is not listening. He is not listening, and he is costing our state millions. We cannot afford to keep studying a method that has already been proven in each state it is practiced to be a costly mistake. It is an egregious abuse of power. It's an egregious abuse of power when a governor commits to drilling rather than to his constituents as promised. We all want jobs, but the jobs proposed aren't safe, do not last, and are exaggerated in numbers and mere tokens to allow the industry in. If the DEC was as educated about this industry as they say they are, they would already know the consequences far outweigh any benefit. And to risk our water, contaminate our air and our land so private, mostly foreign energy corporations can ruin us financially as a state, as landowners, and as neighbors, as Americans, it is unconscionable, especially when we know the market for natural gas has plummeted without recovery, and it will be shipped abroad for higher market price. According to our own Department of Energy, the U.S. is at maximum capacity storage of natural gas and has been for 3 years running, so why keep drilling? To Energy CEO John Sherman, are you here? Oh, for God's sakes, imagine that. Well, to John, I'm sure you'll get it. Mr. Moeller, you're probably left here in this room. In case you haven't received the memo, we take names of those who place us in jeopardy. To even think for a moment that New Yorkers are going to allow this project so that a private corporation can store their toxic explosives here before shipping them out of the country is just ludicrous. In fact, it is insulting to the intelligence of all of us who know the truth about the facts of the development of natural gas. We get our inspiration to fight these battles from 200 years of vigorous rebellion, inspiration to fight for our rights, and it started long ago on the banks of Manhattan when the Redcoats landed and the revolution began. And we are looking for another revolution into clean, renewable energy. Our first president was housed in New York City. They made plans there to establish our own Constitution. The Empire State is home to abolitionists and freedom fighters, home of the women's rights movement, which began here on a street corner in Seneca Falls, New York, establishing my right to speak here today. New York is already wealthy. We are wealthy in beauty. We are wealthy in fresh air and water. Wealth in stable and established economies in tourism, organic foods, and we produce the world-class wines and recreation that depends on everything that it will cost us if this project is allowed. There are places for this kind of facility, and upstate New York is not where it needs to be. We grow our food here, and we are not going to give it up to multinational corporations so they can make another billion in profit this quarter. New Yorkers are not going to allow drilling, therefore, there's no need for a storage facility here or any injection wells. There are too many New Yorkers that are onto the industry's pattern of destruction. The bait and switch leasing, the lawsuits to intimidate won't work here. All of us deserve protection from this industry, and we shouldn't be placed at risk for unfathomable loss so some fat cats can make another record billion in profits. No means no means no. Get out.
Karen Edelstein will be followed by Megan Johnston.
Thanks very much. My name's Karen Edelstein, and I live in the town of Lansing in New York. In the late 1970s, the United States Department of Energy commissioned the Stone and Webster Engineering Corporation to develop an extensive investigation of the safety of storing nuclear waste in the salt caverns that underlie much of central New York. This report was entitled Regional Geology of the Salina Basin, first book of 3. I'll submit that and a few other pieces. So among these 3 very hefty volumes, there are maps that show the locations of the geological strike slip faults that cross central New York. The Stone and Webster report states faulting in the New York study area is far more widespread than previously thought. Thrust faults, both within and above the salt section, have been documented previously. Nearly vertical faults in the Finger Lakes have been proposed to explain a number of subsurface anomalies. These faults are not yet confirmed by field investigations. The report summarizes there is insufficient geological information available to qualify any site in the Salina Basin, which is here, as a repository. Thus, these studies point to what we know and what we do not know about the geology of the basin relative to siting. In other words, keep the dangerous materials out of the salt caverns until we know more about the geology of the region. I've yet to see any evidence of further studies that put Stone & Webster's concerns to rest. So what's interesting is that even though this is an exhaustive study and stacked on top of each other, it's almost a foot high, this wasn't even referenced in the Energy DGEIS, nor for that matter in the SDGIS for the hydrofracking. Nor were subsequent follow-up studies as recent as 2002 by the University at Buffalo's geologist, Dr. Robert Jacoby, who refined the information about those thrust faults, showing similar ones going through the region. Instead, the DSEIS attempts to assure us that, quote, there were no earthquake risks within a half a mile of the subject galleries. Also, they said, quote, having reviewed all of the evidence of the past operating data, Finger Lakes Energy's underground storage permit application demonstrates the suitability of these caverns to safely contain and store LPG for the life of the facility. So I wondered, how could the DSEIS only look at studies for the past 20 years of seismic activity and draw their conclusions? The most significant earthquakes often occur because there are long-term buildups of pressure, and I think anyone who has looked at the concerns of earthquakes in California, for example, could agree with that. But what the DSEIS didn't mention, because it occurred longer ago than 20 years ago, in early 1990s, was that there have been damaging earthquakes in central New York, and when they happen, they cause a lot of damage. One of the most powerful earthquakes ever registered in western and central New York occurred in 1929. It was a magnitude 5.2 earthquake, and it was centered near Attica, New York, 107 miles from Watkins Glen. And in Attica, it did really extensive damage to a lot of buildings there. A few years later, in 1935, there was a more distant but 10 times more powerful earthquake with a magnitude of 6.4 in Quebec, and that was felt all across New York State. And then many of you may remember in 1983, there was a strong earthquake centered in the Adirondacks that caused a considerable amount of damage, including damage to a lot of historic structures at one of the famous great camps at Racket Lake. So some important news that I can share with you that was not mentioned in the DSEIS is that one of those strike slip fault lines, I skipped something. So anyway, the 5.9 earthquake that we had this past August in Virginia, at Mineral, Virginia, was strong enough to damage the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., and that was 91 miles away from where the epicenter was, only slightly closer than Attica is to Watkins Glen. The motion of this quake also shifted 25 of the huge radioactive waste storage tanks at the nearby North Anna nuclear power plant. And many of us, myself included, felt that earthquake very strongly here. So what wasn't mentioned in the DSEIS is that one of those strike slip fault lines that Stone & Webster mentioned, one of them happens to run directly up the west shore of Seneca Lake. Okay? And I'll be submitting this map as well. Yeah. It appears in all of Stone & Webster's maps and in the research of Jacoby, who published less than 10 years ago. And it does appear from this map to be within less than a half a mile of the proposed salt caverns where they're intending on putting this LP gas. So if that strike-slip fault were going to move and cause an earthquake, and we can't say that it will, but frankly, we can't say that it won't, the results could be extremely disastrous for the people in the Watkins Glen area. For example, there are records both of natural gas and of LP gas explosions that have huge consequences for the host communities. One example that happened just a year ago, September, you may remember, is in San Bruno, California, was a pipeline that exploded simply because there was inadequate maintenance on it. Another picture. This is, if you can't see this, this is a huge fireball, and interestingly, the firemen are running away from it. That explosion injured 660 people, killed 8, and destroyed dozens of homes in San Bruno. In conclusion, if this sloppy DSEIS is the best that industry can offer, Inergy, we do not want your operations here. Even a simple Google search can turn up information like the stuff I presented to you just now about seismic activity and geological fault lines that the DSEIS claimed didn't exist. And it makes me wonder, how many other things did they gloss over in that document that, if we did a little bit of digging, might actually be issues? The DSEIS fails to demonstrate to this community that Missouri-based Inergy's LP gas storage project can safely go forward. Our community's safety is more important than Inergy's profits. And thank you.
All right, Megan Johnston, followed by Joseph Campbell.
My name is Megan Johnston. I am currently a resident of Schuyler County and a frequent visitor to Seneca Lake in the nearby town of Watkins Glen. I am speaking today to put forth my concerns regarding Inergy's application for a LPG storage and distribution facility on the shore of Seneca Lake, just 3 miles north of Watkins Glen. I am concerned about the potential impacts of a large 14-acre brine pit spanning a total of 25 acres located on a hillside directly above Seneca Lake. The brine storage will affect not only the aesthetics of Seneca Lake, but also offer potential catastrophic failures of its integrity, thereby endangering the lake and surrounding environment. I am concerned about the increase in rail and truck traffic in a tourist area in a small town currently unequipped to handle the volume through its current infrastructure and also its rural character. This rail line, which would accommodate hundreds of LPG-laden rail cars, would have to pass over the 75-year-old railroad trestle spanning the spectacular gorge in Watkins Glen State Park. This proposal clearly affects current tourism in the state park and also current infrastructure. I am concerned about air quality issues from the increased truck traffic and potential impacts of ground-level ozone and other pollutants on wine grapes and other agricultural crops. Our county is clearly dependent on agriculture and tourism for employment, livelihood, and development of our economy. I am concerned about the overall safety of using salt caverns as large-scale natural gas or liquefied petroleum storage. I would like Inergy and the DEC to disclose the number of years of similarly sized LPG storage facilities and the number of accidents and explosions so that an honest evaluation can be made of the potential disaster. In my own research, I have found that all 10 of the catastrophic failures at underground facilities since 1972 have occurred at salt caverns. Overall, I am concerned about the impact of this industrialization on the tourism and wine industry. The development of a heavy industry in this area would greatly affect our current economic ventures and way of life in the region. Residents currently have, through the efforts of the local residents, obtained thousands of signatures that declare in their vocal majority opposition to Inergy's proposal, along with a myriad of safety and public health concerns. Thank you for allowing me to comment, and I perhaps blindly trust that public health, safety, and welfare will always take priority over politics and greed.
Okay, Joseph Campbell will be followed by Phil Davis.
Yes, my name is Joseph Campbell. I was born and raised in the Finger Lakes. I raised a family here. I buried a wife here. So I'm very concerned with this project. This hearing concerns itself with the LPG storage project as outlined in the DSCIS, and that's namely 2.1 million barrels, of LPG stored in old salt caverns and the related above-ground infrastructure. Unfortunately, the DSCIS, as written by Inergy and its team of lawyers, seems intentionally vague on a number of points. I'd like to quote from the Seeker Handbook regarding how the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation can look at this. Page 99, Section 1 states, quote, an EIS impartially analyzes the full range of potential significant adverse environmental impacts. And in Section 2, quote, it assists in the balancing of environmental issues with social and economic considerations. On page 80, types of impacts, number 12, quote, an environmental assessment and a determination of significance must include consideration of the potential for primary and secondary impacts, long and short-term impacts, and cumulative impacts. On page 81, number 15 states, quote, any long-term impact of an action which is reasonably foreseeable must be considered. I'd like to point out some inconsistencies in that document and look at something that might be considered reasonably foreseeable. The DSCIS seeks to minimize the rail and truck traffic. On page 9, section 2.2, it states the, quote, rail rack capable of loading, unloading 24 rail cars in 12 hours with space to park 32 rail cars. The truck rack is projected to be capable of loading, unloading 30 trucks per day with 2 bays. Expandable to 4 bays. On page 123, operational hours are 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. And it states again, 2 truck bays, 30 trucks per day. The very next page, operational window of 12 hours, approximately 4, but no more than 5 trucks in any given hour. Now, I'm not a mathematician, but I counted 16 hours between 4 a.m. and 8 p.m. On page 125, the train will typically have 32 Finger Lakes cars. We also know from the DSCIS that the truck and rail facility is capable of running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So what is it? Is it 30 trucks per day? Or as you do the math, as I did, based on 4 to 5 trucks per hour, 12 to 16 hours per day, isn't that up to 80 trucks per day? It is. Do the math. And each truck has to make a round trip, correct? 24 rail cars in 12 hours? Or is it many, many more over the course of a 24-hour day? And isn't it conceivable that there could be as many as 64 propane-laden rail cars on site at any given time, each holding 30,000 or more gallons of liquid propane? Oh, I'm sorry. I believe that the expansion plans on the company's website and in certain public document constitute a long-term action that is reasonably foreseeable and that must be considered. For instance, the website refers to Finger Lakes as having up to 5 million barrels of future storage capacity. The same company has plans for the newly acquired NYSEG natural gas storage facility as well. Let me direct your attention to an S1 document filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission dated August 24th, 2011, not too long ago, a little over a month ago, for the initial public offering of Inergy Midstream, which is the parent company of Finger Lakes. On page 98, the second paragraph, talking about NGL storage, it states, quote, the storage facility will be supported by rail and truck terminal facilities capable of loading, unloading 32 rail cars per day and 45 truck transports per day. Also, quote, upon receipt of regulatory approvals, we believe it can be expanded by up to 5 million barrels of capacity. Words have meanings. Again, 30 trucks, 45 trucks, 24 rail cars, 32 rail cars, more. We can't tell from this document. Page 99 of the same document, paragraph 2, it states, quote, we also plan to jointly develop with Inergy an approximate 10.0 billion cubic feet of natural gas storage facility by 2014, and Inergy has identified existing salt caverns for this project and intends to convert them to natural gas storage. And finally, perhaps the most chilling part of this document is found on page 26, where it lists 10 of the hazards and operational risks, including, and I quote, problems with the structural integrity of our salt caverns, subsidence of geological structures where we store natural gas and NGLs, read propane and butane, operator error, etc. In the last paragraph, and continued on page 27, it states, quote, a natural disaster or other hazard could have a material adverse effect. We are not fully insured against all risks inherent in our business. In addition, we are not insured against all environmental accidents that might occur. That's interesting because in a closed-door meeting with some local business owners this past June, Mr. Moeller stated, when asked the question, that Inergy has no plans to expand their LPG storage at this facility, and he also told them when asked that Inergy was fully insured. Tonight, I overheard him stating that if there's a market for more gas, they will expand. So, what is it? Perhaps that begs the question, what is the character of this company? And what can we expect if they're allowed to get their foot in the door by receiving approval for this, the initial phase of this project? Thank you very much, sir.
Phil Davis. Oh, is Mr. Davis here? Okay. Michelle Pavillard. Yvonne Taylor. Oops, is that Ms. Pavillard? Okay, good. She'll be followed by Yvonne Taylor.
Hello, I'm Michelle Pavillard. I am the owner of Lake House Bed and Breakfast, and I had no intentions of speaking at this meeting today. But in coming here, I was listening to the evening news on the radio and was very distressed to hear a representative of Inergy trying to reassure the audience that he was speaking to, or the media, that the brine pond could not be breached, would not be breached, but if it were breached, it would be a small drop in a huge lake and have no environmental consequence. So I want to ask Inergy, what do I tell my guests as they go down to the dock and see dead fish? If Inergy is not willing to be supportive of my business, how can I be supportive of theirs? And if they are so willing to be sloppy and arrogant in their broadcast to the media, why should I trust that they really will be a trustworthy member of this community? Thank you.
All right, Yvonne Taylor will be followed by Jack Osant, and I apologize.
Thank you. My name is Yvonne Taylor, and I live in Burdett, New York. In the interest of full disclosure, I am the co-founder of Gas Free Seneca, but tonight I speak only for myself. I am submitting more substantive written comments, but I want to expand on a few aspects of this project tonight. The first is the impact of noise for those residing or vacationing on the east side of Seneca Lake. The DSEIS does not consider this, although the lake's water is an excellent transmitter of noise. On a still night, you can hear a conversation taking place on a boat in the middle of the lake. On and off since August 16th, Inergy has been drilling 24 hours a day on their property. Despite several noise complaints to both the DEC and local officials from residents across the lake, Inergy has continued to drill without successful noise mitigation. If this is any indication of the kind of neighbors they will be, we are in trouble. During the daytime hours, it's easier to tune it out. By 2 a.m., when the noise wakes you up, you become agitated. By 4 a.m., it seems akin to Chinese water torture. The constant reverberating drone rattles your brain, and sleep is futile. We have tried to close the windows and turn off the fan to block the noise, but that defeats the purpose of lakeside living in the summertime. Just wait until we can hear the continual screech of metal as trains move on track at the depot. My property isn't just property to me, it is my history. But for the first time, I am considering having to sell. The essence of the place is gone. The sole purpose of being there, solitude, has already been stolen. Which brings me to the other point. The DSEIS mentions briefly the growth-inducing aspects of Inergy's project. It does not adequately study the potentially negative economic impact of this facility on the existing economy. I request that a study to determine how this facility will impact the character of our community be completed, and a balancing test between the positive economic attributes of the project along with the negative ones be completed. When's the last time you heard anyone say, "Honey, let's buy lake property across from a noisy truck and train depot with a flare stack and brine pond"? We won't need to build a bonfire, we can simply watch the burning stack. We won't have to strain our necks looking at the stars, we can gaze at the ambient light coming from the depot across the lake. My property value will decrease, and I may never get back what it is worth. When is the last time you ever took your family on a vacation to Newark, New Jersey? Will people spend thousands to come to this region if it is riddled with more traffic, more noise, and more industry than we already have? We are at a crossroads, and we need to proceed extremely cautiously. The very spirit of the Finger Lakes, its natural beauty, agriculture, and wineries is at stake. We are a world-class tourist destination. The notion of this facility coming to our area has already hurt our economy. In the past 9 months, I have heard from individuals, business owners, and potential developers who have put more compatible investment projects on hold, who have declined not to buy property or decided not to buy property, who have put their homes or businesses up for sale, who have chosen not to do a renovation project because of the proposed energy development and expansion. Here's one example from someone who wanted his statement heard but is in California tonight. To all concerned with the future of Schuyler County, I am not an environmentalist. I am a businessman who owns several properties in Schuyler County, including 2 commercial properties on Franklin Street in Watkins. Until this past summer, I was in the design phase of a large tourism-based business in Hector that would have created several full-time jobs in addition to utilizing many local contractors over a period of 18 months of physical construction. I had also given scoped my initial plans to remodel one of my properties on Franklin Street to support their historical restoration plan for downtown Watkins Glen. I have now put all investments in Schuyler County on hold until the future of Inergy's expansion plans and the future of our community is clearly determined. I know that the facility has been there for a long time, as I have been a member of this community since 1973. The issue is expansion, and the fact that the growth of this Missouri-based company's operations will slow or stop the growth in the wine tourism industries and limit related future investment in the area. I have heard Inergy claim that this will not be the case. Well, I am living proof that they are wrong. It goes against all uninfluenced logic to think that visible or audible industrial activity will do anything but lower the value of nearby properties, that increased transient truck traffic will offer anything positive to the residents, landlords, or business owners on Franklin Street, or that consumer propane costs will be stabilized by a company who has been fined by the Attorney General of Michigan for widespread price gouging. The leaders of the once poor Napa Valley embraced their vineyard identity in its infancy by limiting industrial activity for the sake of tourism. Since then, every Napa property owner has benefited from their leadership. Well over 100 businesses are telling us that this is wrong for their industry here in the Finger Lakes. How can we not listen to the majority of our homegrown industry in order to benefit one multi-billion-dollar corporation? That's the end of his letter. I'm almost done. In conclusion, this project would damage the very heart of the Finger Lakes economically, environmentally, and physically in the event of an accident. To the DEC, I say please preserve and protect what we have here. This is our Yellowstone. This is our Napa Valley. There is no right way to do the wrong thing. And Inergy's plan to turn us into the gas storage and transportation hub of the Northeast is the wrong thing. This is an inappropriate site for this project. To Inergy, I say, please go back to Kansas City. We don't want you here.
All right, Jack Osant, followed by Susan Wolf.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for staying here to hear from my wrinkled brow and my weary eyes and my gray beard, which I assure you I've earned over the past years in looking at not only this project, but the underlying project that supports this project, which is hydrofracking throughout New York State. I've seen this experience many times in my life where people come and they vent their frustrations before a regulatory agency. Jane Ann Morris, a cultural anthropologist from the University of Michigan, remarked one time, if you go to a regulatory hearing, you speak into a microphone that goes nowhere. You are colonized by this regulatory hearing. The action is on the outside and not the inside of this room. It concerns me when the administrative law judge referred a question earlier in this proceeding concerning the brine pond from someone who was concerned about it to a representative of industry. I would have thought that the DEC would be more concerned about referring it to a scientist that could study that question and then render opinion instead of referring it to industry. I think that's quite telling. I'm going to read some comments tonight that were constructed after I gave a rant to a friend of mine over the regulatory system and why I generally don't participate in it. This is a local writer by the name of Steve Kaufman. Some of you may be familiar with his writings. In a just and principled democracy, our state and federal departments of environmental protection would be among the most heeded and honored public agencies. Unfortunately, in our corrupted and corrosive times of moneyed influence and jaded politicians, this cannot be the case. No matter how much some sincere and principled members of those agencies might wish otherwise. And truly, this is a tragic reality for our sporadically progressive country because we've never so needed effective governmental help in protecting our environment as we do now. In the face of pillaging corporate behemoths, a military monstrosity unto itself, a puppet press, representatives who represent nothing more than their own ambitions, and laws left to the interpretation of an equally infected Supreme Court, the health, safety, and welfare of communities in our environment have descended to an each for his own state of affairs. Indeed, how beneficial would it be to actually have a government that took its power from the collective people in order to confront and counteract these malignant, mega-corporate profit machines that, left to their own, will never stop growing and contaminating until the last saleable resource has been depleted, the last soul turned cynical, the last simple beauty usurped, and I've lost my place, usurped for profit and trampled in the process. Sadly, it seems that the more we need our government in this regard, the more their committees and forums are packed with corporate advisors and the less responsive to the people and the environment their policies become. As a result, I can only conclude that the people should not waste their precious time in trying to convince unconvincible agencies whose conclusions are already foregone and bought by corporate interests. As difficult and perhaps even futile as it may be, we, the people, need to use our energy to connect with each other and regrow our democratic dream. From the roots up, the only legitimate and effective way to ensure our health, safety, and welfare there has ever been. If our governmental agencies can help us protect the health and character of our towns, that help is welcome. In the meantime, if you can't lend a hand, please at least respect the spirit of democracy enough to stay out of our way while our towns rightfully assume those responsibilities for themselves. Thank you.
Susan Wolf will be followed by Chris Tate. Is Susan Wolf here? No? 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 Okay. Chris Tate? Okay. Mr. Tate will be followed by Beth Miller.
Thank you. I represent the Finger Lakes Clean Waters Initiative. We put on the Big Splash concert series this summer. And out of extreme respect for Dr. Sandra Steingraber, I'd like to cede my time to her. She's our scientific advisor for the group, and she got here late. And definitely her words are way more important than mine. So ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Sandra Steingraber.
Yes, I think I'm number 60 on the list. So thank you, Chris. I'm a biologist and a mother, and my son is here with me, and I appreciate the chance to try to beat our bedtime. My name is Sandra Steingraber. I'm a biologist at Ithaca College, and I've spent the last 20 years studying environmental health and published 3 books on the topic. Environmental health is a field that is filled with uncertainty, but there is absolute proof for something, and one of those things is air pollution. Air pollution kills, and it kills in ways that are quantifiable. For example, last week I was giving an invited lecture at Rice University in Houston, and in the news was the EPA's cross-state air pollution final ruling, which demonstrated that if Texas could lower air emissions from its power plants, it would save 1,700 lives, as well as somewhere between $5.8 and $14 billion in healthcare costs. But the Attorney General of that state was filing suit to prevent implementation of those new rules. So as one of the members of my audience asked, essentially, that meant that 1,700 people in Texas were going to be consigned to death. people will die if you permit the LPG storage facility and pipeline in this community. And most of those people will be old people and children. Exposure to vehicular traffic exhaust, diesel exhaust, and benzoate and ozone are affiliated with stroke, heart attack, breast cancer, and diabetes, and in children, higher rates of asthma, more severe asthma attack, lowered IQ, and in pregnant women in miscarriage and preterm birth. Those are quantifiable problems. And my request to the DEC is to quantify them. We need to know how many people will die from exposure to the air pollution that will certainly follow this development, and is that number greater than the number of people that are going to be employed by this facility? So that is my request. Let's generate the numbers. The United States government can do that for air pollution on a national level. We can run those numbers and find out how many people in this community will die, and then it will be up to the people of Seneca Falls and the surrounding areas to decide if those numbers are acceptable. Now, I am here not just as a biologist, but also as a mother. I gave birth to my son Elijah right here in Schuyler County at the September Hill Birth Center, because this is the place that I wanted to give birth to my child. And I'd like that story to be told by my son.
Hi, my name is Elijah DiCastro. I live in Trumansburg, New York. I am in 5th grade. I came here to say that I think that storing poisonous chemicals in historic caves is extremely dangerous. So is storing salty water in a pond above Seneca Lake. If there is a flood, it could spill. I was born at the September Hill Birth Center on August 10, 2001, on the night of a NASCAR race. I like the place where I was born, and I like to come back and hike at in the Watkins Glen Gorge. But my mom says that we won't be able to come here anymore if they store poisonous chemicals in the caves. I have a history of asthma problems with my lungs, and even if there is no terrible accident, trucks and trains and machines will make it hard for me to breathe here. The air will feel heavy in my lungs. Kids like to relax and not worry that their backyards will blow up. I like to visit the place where I was born. Please keep it safe. Protecting kids is your job as grown-ups.
Beth Miller. Beth Miller here? Okay. Is it Tricia Barry? Did I get that right? Okay. Followed by Byron Thompson.
Not sure how I can follow Elijah on that one because I can get emotional at times, and I know this is not the forum for that. I wasn't expecting to speak tonight either, but my family just this past weekend, my family just, we crushed our first grapes. We are are planning to open a winery this year, and my husband is a winemaker who works at Cuca Lake Vineyards. I work at Cornell University, and this time of year should be filled with excitement of the coming harvest. And so many winemakers can't be here tonight because they're working late into the morning hours while they're crushing grapes. So I thought that it was important for somebody else to try to represent them and kind of what we're dealing with here. I would like to specifically ask in this The environmental impact statement addresses just that, the environment, and I think Joe Campbell had brought up as well that it really should take into consideration, or it's in the SECRA, that it should take into consideration economic impacts as well. And I would respectfully ask that there be some sort of an economic impact study in the region. My husband came here to make wine. He worked in Washington State. He actually started out in upstate New York and near Albany, and then had worked in Oregon as well as Washington State. And he decided to settle in the Finger Lakes because this is the one region where winemakers can actually buy land. You don't have to be a multimillionaire in order to be able to buy land on really great soil. And this is one area that you can do it, and you can actually, you know, I grew up in the Midwest, in Missouri, actually, believing in the American dream, that you could, if you worked hard enough and you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, that you could, do what you want in order to be successful. And I think we're in a situation now where we have an industry that's butting heads with an existing industry that's here. And I think the argument that propane storage and natural gas storage has existed here in the past is a false argument, because what this is all about is the expansion of that industry, and that it goes head to head with another industry that is thriving here. Every time I open up Wine Spectator, I'm seeing more and more scores that are 90 or above, and those of you who may or not be may or may not be interested in wine, this is a world-class wine region. And it's the third largest producing state in the United States. This is a serious industry. This is an industry that employs people, it gives them jobs, and we have a dream. My family has a dream to be able to establish ourselves here, and we've met so many wonderful other winery owners and winemakers who have fulfilled their dreams. And it would be really, really sad to see that industry go away, and for this other industry that's coming in from out of state, and to establish themselves. So I would ask Inergy, being from the Show Me state myself, show me a quantitative risk analysis and an economic impact study. Thank you.
Okay, we're up to Byron Thompson, followed by Jane Winters.
Yes, I promise not to hold you long. A lot of good input here tonight. Like I said, I go to a lot of these meetings to learn on both sides. I work at U.S. Salt. I've been there almost 35 years. I was born down in Schuyler Hospital, down in Montour, so I've been here all my lifetime. You look at some of the scenarios and this and that. I'm also a firefighter. I can go down the line. I've done numerous stuff of volunteering my services in here. Like I said, I appreciate everybody's opinion, and my opinion, and I'm going to make it real short, is, like I said, I've been to many, many calls for the fire department. We've never been called down there, so, can it happen? I told a group before, can it happen? Yeah, it can happen, but it hasn't. And it's been there 40 years longer than what I've worked there. So I understand. Now listen, everybody had their time. Please give me my time. I'm trying to be honest here. This is my honest opinion and what I am. I'm also a union president. Please don't hold this anything like being in the fire department or anything like that. I just want you to know me as Byron Thompson and what I do in this community. I'm very involved in this community. Have been ever since a little kid. Lived on a farm. I've worked the farmland. I know about the wineries. I have a daughter-in-law that manages a winery. I understand a lot of the issues. But like I said, the main thing I'm going to say is, I support this. I have 104, 105 people down there that's union members. They work there. It's a U.S. Salt. A lot of people don't realize one of our salt that we do make is for kidney dialysis and IVs. If you get in an ambulance or something, which I'm also go into, they have a bag that hangs above you. That's life-saving, and I understand a lot of your points. I really do. But my opinion is that Inergy has been good to us down there as U.S. Salt. In my opinion, to me, one of the aspects they do is if we have a call, they allow me to go to any call. Just leave, go. which is nice because there might be somebody in the gorge that's gone over. And I keep using, can it happen? Yeah, it can happen. I'm a part of the rope rescue team, rappelling team. We go over and rescue dogs, you know, and you do it. Can I get hurt? Yes, I can get hurt, but I haven't yet. And being in the fire department, I promise you, I will be there at any call. You won't see me running the other way. And to say we're not trained and qualified, you do not know the years and training that we have. Hazmat, you just wouldn't understand the training. Come see one of the officers down at the fire department. Volunteer your time, see what there is there. But again, I support this, and I appreciate everybody listening to me and everything else. So, like I said, you have your opinions, I have my opinions, and I appreciate your opinions, and I hope you appreciate mine. Thank you.
All right, Jane Winters will be followed by Dave Walzak. I apologize.
I just want to say to Byron that this has nothing to do with U.S. salt. I wanted to raise some questions directly from the DECIS, referring to page 109 with the number of trucks, which Joseph Campbell already talked about. It's confusing. They talk about two different, in following paragraphs, two different numbers. So, but I also want to know who's responsible for road repair that will come, especially on 14A, directly from this project. The 14A off-ramp bridge, I live on Church Road in Reading Center, by the way. I live right there. I go to the post office every day. And earlier this year, I heard that they were going to be closing that bridge because of its condition. So I did not see any reference to that bridge in the DECIS. And it does have a weight restriction, and because I'm not a professional, I don't know how much these trucks weigh. I assume that they meet that restriction. From page 154, the economic benefits. I hear about the economic benefits all the time. They mention at this point that there will be an increase in rail jobs, and yet Inergy earlier had stated that Norfolk Southern would be handling all the train operations, so I don't know how they can say that they are going to cause an increase in rail employees. Construction is stated earlier to take about 6 months, so those 50 construction jobs that are so wonderful will be so for 6 months. It says 8 to 10 permanent jobs. $40,000 to $50,000 is nothing to sneeze at. And I've been assured by Mr. Cray that these are highly trained individuals who will command that large salary amount. Well, I don't think that we have current residents of the county that are trained in those specific things, so the economic benefits, all of them, don't seem very economic. Also, this may not be a question for DEC, but it's in the DSEIS. I don't know why pilot is being offered. Payment in lieu of taxes? Pilot is a program to entice companies to come into an area. Nobody's trying to entice Inergy into coming here. So I don't understand why that is happening. And if Reading is going to be responsible for the road repair, 1/3 of $440,000 is not going to go far. On page 127 of the DSEIS, Inergy talks about the plants that are going to be planted, that they'll all be will be local native plants, and yet they mentioned the Russian olive, which is an invasive species. And in the earlier draft, I know that question was raised by the DEC, and so in this approved DSEIS, has Finger Lakes LPG totally ignored the DEC requirement. With regard to the rail project, who's going to be responsible for the crossing signals and arms on a lot of the rail crossings that have neither? The mention of the bridge over Route 329, which was built in 1902 and is visibly crumbling. There has been repeated claims of decrease in propane costs. Show me the money. I want to know exactly how much it's going to be lowered. Inergy has absolutely nothing to do with setting propane costs. It also mentions that this project is within the waterfowl winter concentration area, and although they are not a threatened species, are we just going to ignore their well-being? Reference has been made to TEPCO storage, and now it's been here for so long with no problems. TEPCO does not involve a 14-acre brine pond. There is a brine pond. Somebody asked about that earlier. There is one visible from 14. It's maybe an acre in size, and I assume that's the one they're talking about for overflow. But TEPCO does not store brine on an open-air pond as a regular thing. Nor has TEPCO built a huge rail siding. So this is not TEPCO. It is not Enterprise, the new company. It is Inergy, and some references have been made to the issues with that company by others. The Bath facility does not have a brine pond hovering over a freshwater source, nor does it have to have the trucks travel through a canyon like Franklin Street of Watkins Glen. Also, I asked Rosemarie, our Greatest Generation speaker, her name again because I can't retain names, and she talked about the necessity to talk to our leaders. We in Reading Center have been trying to speak to the planning board and to the town board and have been shut down and not allowed to speak. Worldwide, fresh water is in very short supply. Are we so arrogant to think that we in the United States can put fresh water at risk? And finally, the wine trail is a wonderful thing. I've lived here for 10 years. And I've seen that grow exponentially over the 10 years. But we haven't mentioned, this is for my husband's sake, the beer trail that's starting, nor the cheese trail that's starting. More economic development that will include jobs of local people. And finally, again, I hope that the DEC will vet any company that wants to come into New York State. Inergy already has a reputation, which you can find on the internet, with regard to ignoring environmental impact and, as mentioned earlier, price gouging of propane. Thank you.
All right. Unfortunately, we've hit 10 o'clock, and they've told us we have to be out of the building. I don't have the authority, but I'm sure we're going to have that conversation right now after we're done. Well, then we'll just stand adjourned, and I'll try to get you an answer to that question about continuing the hearing at a later date.